Hello and welcome. This is Ahmed Ragab from the Academic Professional Training, and this is the session that's talking about TOEFL integration reading and listening. Okay, so as you know me, actually we talked before about some things related to the TOEFL. Actually, in the beginning we gave like a brief idea about the TOEFL, who takes the TOEFL, and how many organizations do they have they approve that thing or you ask for that thing. Then after that we talk about listening, and we talk about the skills of the listening, the strategies, how to listen and how to do things. Before that we talk about reading and other things with Mr. Medhat and I. Okay, so now today we're going to talk about something different. Now we've thought about listening alone, thought about reading alone. Now how about the integration? So there's something called integrated. So what means integrated? As we actually explained in the beginning, that means when I combine two skills together. Now we have four skills. We have reading, listening, writing, and speaking. Very nice. So we combine two skills together. Okay, this is the integration. So this is part of the exam. As we said, that the exam is divided into two parts. Okay, each part is divided into two. Now in the beginning you will have the reading, then the listening, then after that you take a 10 minute break, and after that you take speaking, at the end you take the writing. Okay, so that's two sections of the exam, and each section is divided into two. But you don't take a break until you finish the second section. Okay, I'm so sorry, I think you finished the second part of the first section. Like, you cannot take a break before finishing the reading, then finishing the listening. So today we'll have a simulation. Like, we are trying to imitate the exam. We are trying to have something related to the exam, something like that. And we're trying to show you how long is the exam. So today's session technically is talking about how to explain, how to solve that problem, and also we'll talk about some taking notes and other things. We start first by the listening, the reading, then after that the listening. Okay, now this is the sequence of the thing. Okay, we started by something like somehow like a reading that does not have it's not complicated reading, and not like that the extent. We said before that the reading can be one of two kinds. First kind, that the normal one that everyone takes, that has 3 passages, each passage 700 words, and each passage that has 13 questions. Now the extended version, okay, does have 65 questions. So somebody can say 5 passages, not just 3. So 65 passages. Now what are the differences between two kinds? Like, they're not picking on you or something like that, but as we said, every now and then they try to the extended one. So it's a matter of luck, coincidence. So by coincidence you might have the first one, and by coincidence you might have the extended one, the second one. Okay, so today we have not the extended one, we have the short version, which is has 39 questions. So we agreed before, that's the shorter one that has 3 questions. Then after that we'll go to pieces of listening. And also for the listening part, we have 2 kinds of listening parts. The extended version and, yes, the short version. The short version when I have 2 conversations, 2 lectures, and 2 dialogues. The longer version will have 3, 3, and 3. Okay? Each conversation, dialogue, and discussions and other things, it goes from, let's say, from 2 to 3 minutes each. So technically, if you try to measure it, so the second section we spend say 40 minutes, 60 minutes, something like that. Okay? Depends on how fast are you in answering questions. And we've talked also about some skills related to the listening. What did we say about them? We said that we have some strategic things that we use when we are listening to something. Now how? Now, for example, when I listen to something, I have to focus with some things. Some of these things are synonyms and other things. Okay, so that's part of that listening part. Now, if we're talking also about the listening part, we're talking about something very important. That the important thing that it's somehow a main thing in that exam, taking notes. And actually we've thought about how to take notes for the reading and listening and other things. So we need to focus now on how to solve the whole thing together. So have like the integrated both of exams together, the reading exam and the listening exam, because this is like the exam. We're trying to prepare you to do the exam. Okay, so I'll try with the reading section first. Now, if we're trying to talk about the reading, let's try to remember something about the reading. So the reading has like 13 questions for each passage. Some of the questions about main ideas. Some of the questions about the point of view of the writer. Some of the questions are like sentence and you have to put it inside the passage. Very nice. Some of the questions arranging sequence events or choosing events. And some of the questions also you can choose two answers. So that's like, for example, for the reading part. Okay? And most of the reading part passages, okay, are the same, mainly the same. He asks you about the main idea. He asks you about, like, for example, an event. He drew conclusion for something. He relies on your understanding. So how to find the main idea or the purpose of that thing? Like we said like the repeated words, repeated sections, repeated things. That's the main idea mainly. Okay, so that's for the reading part. Okay, so that was a brief about everything. So let's start that thing and let's get to know about it in a good way. Now, so let's start. The integrate listening and reading. Now, as it's written here, so we spend 130 minutes. 130 minutes between two of them. You're trying to solve both of them. Okay? So the reading and the listening. Divide it, of course, among both. Okay? So let's start. Now the reading section. Okay? So we will read and then, yes, very nice, answer the following questions for the thing. Okay? So we read briefly. What do I do when I read briefly? It's like this. Now, let's first bring the note and, very nice, to write notes about things. Okay? Very nice. Let's bring the note.
Hi everyone, today we're going to start talking about the TOEFL IPT test, and as a first lesson, I'm going to explain the importance of taking notes during the test. Some people don't understand why it is so important to take notes, and trust me, when you're doing an IPT test, it is vital to be taking notes. If you've seen some of my videos, then you already know that taking a TOEFL test is not only about knowing English, it's also about processing information in English. You will have to paraphrase, you will have to digest, you will have to make conclusions on your own, you will have to infer, you will have to do a lot more processes than just a simple English test. In the reading test, you really shouldn't worry about taking notes. Everything that you need to know and read is already there in the passage, so taking notes about the reading test is really not that important. In the other three areas, though, taking notes is vital. The two areas that are most important to be taking notes is during the listening section and the speaking section. However, in the writing section, you will have to be drawing a draft before you actually start writing your essay, so at some point you will have to be taking notes. Also, during the speaking and the writing section of the test, you will have to be doing an integrated task, which means that you will have to be listening to a short audio track as well as reading a small article. For both parts, I would recommend you to be taking notes as well. The easiest way to be taking notes during the listening test is as you were taking dictation. I know that not a lot of people can be taking dictation, especially when they speak as fast as they do during the listening section, but there are a couple tricks that you can implement now. How can you do this? Let's say that you like watching documentaries on YouTube or on the television. Why not take notes during that? You can be sitting down in front of your television or your computer with a notebook, and as the narrator starts speaking, you can start taking notes on your own. Later on, when the documentary is over, you can just review your notes and you will see that you can remember a lot more than if you didn't take notes at all. The only task here is what kind of notes should you take. During the listening section of the TOEFL IBT, you will hear certain words that are unknown. This is very common. They will speak about a certain subject and they will try to elaborate about it. Those words that you don't understand are not vital for you to write down. So don't waste your energy trying to figure out that word, because you're going to see that word in the questions and that's just going to start making sense. What you will have to be writing down are the definitions of those words you couldn't understand. Another trick is that sometimes during those tracks, the professor or whoever is speaking will correct himself. I don't know, let's say that he says honest and then he says, oh, excuse me, dishonest. What is important is the correction, not what he said before. Most of the talks during the listening section will start doing classifications. Please, do your notes as classifying. You can do a chart, you can start making lists. The idea is that you understand that they're going to do a classification. Sometimes they could be describing a process. You should hear keywords like first, firstly, then second, and maybe you will hear a finally. If you hear those words, that means that the professor was explaining a process for which you will have to be putting down every step of it. Remember, if you're a creative person and you don't want to be just writing down, doesn't matter. You can be doing drawings. The important thing here is that you can do those notes in an efficient and quick way, so at the end, those notes are useful to answer the questions. Remember that an image is worth 1,000 words. What I'm trying to say is that you have to be taking notes in a manner that you don't get distracted by taking notes, but you can continue understanding and following the flow from the lecture. The best advice I can give you during the listening section is that you listen to each lecture as if you were right there in that classroom taking class. You would have to be completely involved during the lecture. During the speaking section of the TOEFL IBT, it is also important to be taking notes. Taking notes during this section is important because a lot of people just run out of ideas and they just stop talking. This will make you lose points during this section. Remember that during the speaking section you will only have 15 seconds to prepare. In other tests you will have 20. It's really not that much. During those 15 seconds you will have to take as many notes to answer the question you just had. The idea here is brainstorm. Brainstorm means that you have to write down as many words as they come to your head. Remember, one of the most important parts that they will score during your examination will be coherence. So that means that your ideas have to be in order. Remember that as you write down your notes, you will have to start writing them from top to bottom. It doesn't matter you don't follow the same order as long as there is logic between one idea to the next. For the writing section, taking notes is a much longer process. That's why this video will be in 2 parts. Here's a link for the second video so you can learn a lot more about taking notes during the writing section. Thank you again for stopping by, and visit my website, and the link is in the box below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, so that was the first thing about taking notes. Now let's remember something else when he was like using animations and he told us about how to make columns and other things. So let's remember this video.
Welcome to the English Simple Notes video. In this particular video, we're going to go over the two main structures for note-taking on the TOEFL IBT. With the English Simple program, when you learn these note structures and apply them to the test, it's going to make your test so much easier. So it's very, very important that we learn and we master this particular lesson. Now, the most important thing with your note-taking on the TOEFL IBT is that your notes be simple and that they be consistent. Consistent means to do the same thing over and over again. The idea is that once you learn how to do the notes, you will always do the same notes for every single question and every single section of the TOEFL IBT. It's really the key to mastering the TOEFL, consistent and simple notes. Now, the note-taking strategy that we're going to teach is useful on all four sections of the TOEFL IBT. There's two main types of notes, only two, so it's pretty simple. And the two note structures, the first one we're going to talk about is very good for both the speaking and the writing section. And that note structure is what we call the outline structure. The outline structure has this format. There's a main idea, and then you have supporting ideas or examples which support that main idea. Let me make it a little bit more simple. Let's say that you're at a party and someone is telling you something, a story, or that they like pizza. It'd be very, very easy to keep track of that information because it's coming from one source. For this kind of a situation, we use the outline structure because there's only one source of information. Now, let's say you're at a party and you talk to a lot of people and they're all telling you different things. It would be very, very difficult to keep all that information straight because there's so many different sources of information. When there's more than one source of information, we use what's called the column format. The column format is a way to keep track of different sources of information. For example, on speaking question 5, there's different sources of people talking. There's also you, where you give your opinion. So speaking question 5 is actually a combination of the column and the outline structure. Let's go ahead and review. The two note structures for the TOEFL IBT are the outline format, which is for single sources of information. You have a main idea, and then supporting ideas or examples. Remember the party situation. The second format is the column format, where you have multiple sources of information, or a lot of people at the party, all talking to you. Simple, right? Now let's go ahead and try it out.
Welcome back. So this is how I take notes. So as we agreed that we have a note, like a notebook will have when you go to the exam to take notes about things. Now let's start with the reading, first piece of reading, and let's get to know it more. Okay? Now let's go. Now this piece of reading is called exotic and integrated speeches. Now sometimes you're not going to understand all of the topics because most of the topics are very nice, scientific topics. So you're not somehow, not a must to know each and every word in the whole reading, in the whole passage. Okay, you can just know like some parts, understand the general idea and other things. Now, how do we understand the general idea from each one? Now, so let's focus on each one. We have 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we have 8 paragraphs in the whole reading. We have 8 paragraphs in the whole reading. So now what's the idea of doing things? Now we have to understand that each paragraph like talks about specific things. So I have to like know what is it talking about. I'm asking about each one, so I know what each one's talking about. Now, so let's first talk about here. So when you hear someone bubbling enthusiastically about an exotic species, you can safely, that the speaker isn't an ecologist. So he's talking about exotic species. And talk about what else? Very nice. We're talking about ecology. Ecology. Let's read the last line. So, unlike most imports, okay, which can take hold outside their home range, and exotic species permanently insulate itself into a new community. Okay, so he's talking about species. So species of what? So maybe species of animal, maybe species of insect, maybe species of anything. Okay, so let's go next. Now let's read the first line and the last line to understand what he's talking about. Now sometimes in addition to harmless and even like beneficial effects, so okay, so that here he's talking about beneficial effects.